Alec, what's going on? I'm Daryl Dixon in his poncho. Also, underneath, though, I'm just a Haunting a Hill House fan. Steve
Yeah,
and
just
Theo and
just
Luke and Nell and Shirley and Dad and Mom.
I should get that shirt. I like that show. I
Love
think
them.
we you could say that we're fairly big fans of that show. It was our probably biggest surprise of last year, like how much we loved it.
We love that.
Um uh so it that came out 2 years ago. So the follow up of sorts, it's sort of like it's almost like they're gonna maybe use this as like an anthology name
The Haunting, yeah.
going forward, The Haunting of. So the follow up in that came out just recently, this earlier this month. So we watched our way through it, and we're here to review it now. So
Mm-hmm.
uh, let's do let's do something that we don't always do. I feel like we should try to be spoiler free,
Spoiler
and then
free.
we can enter spoiler territory at a certain period of time. So
Well, first of all, you do not need to see The Haunting of Hill House, like, not even
no,
a little bit.
nope, not even remotely.
And I was surprised by how different this show feels. Like,
Oh,
it
it's
feels
super.
like
Yeah,
so different.
it's super different. Yeah, for
Uh,
sure.
like I found The Haunting of Hill House to be more like I was more on edge the whole time. Like
Yeah,
there's some freaky stuff in here, but I wasn't on edge. Like I was just like I don't know. It was a different tone entirely almost.
it's a very different tone. I adore the Honeyville House. I maybe it's unfair for me to have had the same expectations going in, but with Mike Flanagan kind of attached to it again, I kind of was thinking, yeah, it's gonna be like up to that exact same level. But then I started to notice, well, the sort of tonal differences that this series has, but additionally, I was noticing in all of the opening credits where it was listing different writers and directors for every episode, and I was
Hmm.
like, oh, which to me speaks to what I would say is a relatively unevenness in quality of the show.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. I thought it was really good. In fact, I would probably watch it again. I think it's definitely a solid show, very well acted. But there's just there's something off. There was just something off the whole time that it wasn't clicking with me the right way. Um, and again, maybe some of it was just partially like I was expecting it to get a similar but different experience from than in compared to Hill House. And there are definitely elements of it where I felt like sort of the kind of there was a masterful sort of touch to it that I felt really uh, was really present. But I don't know if maybe it was the source material. I don't know if it was like sort of what it was based on. I don't know if it was. I don't know. I don't want to sound like I'm coming down on it too hard because I did still really enjoy it. But it definitely didn't do it as much for me as I was hoping
Hmm.
that it would do. But how about yourself?
See, I didn't have big expectations. I was like, it was almost like the original was so good. I was like, there's no way it'll live up to that going
Yeah,
into it.
yeah,
But yeah, I would agree that it was definitely it felt a little off, especially in the beginning, where it was like when you didn't have the full picture of the whole story too, where it was like, I hate these kids immediately. I'm like, these kids are creepy. And these now we and like you come to know there's a reason for that, but
yeah.
at the time I'm like, wow, not perfectly splendid.
I think well, okay. That's all okay. There were parts of that that were like too weird, where it was like not wanting to get too deep into spoilers, but like it just that just didn't feel like even in a posh setting in the 80s,
Mm-hmm.
that feels like horribly out of place, and maybe some of that is kind of the point of part of it. Um it just is very weird. Very strange that like they would talk like that in that manner, but
Right. Well,
um that's I think that's more of a nitpick than anything. But
but yeah, I would just say
um
in terms of like it makes sense it didn't click as much because I feel like the characters weren't as you know you didn't connect to the characters as much.
I didn't, and that was a big problem. Is that like a lot of them felt too too like a trope almost. Like the
Yeah, like they were kind of like it's like characters from Clue, like how they just have their little place in that.
Yeah, and I think again, there's parts of it that I really like. So just generally speaking, this is like a it's almost like a Victorian sort of the Bly House Manor. Sorry, Bly Manor is like a I mean, it dates back like way further back than that, as you
Mm-hmm.
come to find out later. But it's sort of like the I think that the what this is originally based on is the turn of the screw or turning of the screw, which is set in the 1800s, which sort of lends to this whole like Victorian sort of gothic horror kind of. It's like a gothic romance horror kind of was what this is, and there's parts of that I like that the idea of that, and there's lots. I think that's why I find myself enjoying parts of it because there's bits and pieces of it that I really liked because it was sort of leaning into that, but like in a way that I don't want to say it's like in a way that subverted your expectations, but it was in a way that was like, oh, that's kind of a neat thing that they did there. Like it's sort of like a twist on this idea. Um, if you particularly if you enjoy a lot of period pieces, it's funny because I'm talking about like it's a period piece when it's set in the 80s, but the thematic elements of or I should say the story beats are very similar to like a gothic sort of horror ghost story.
Mm-hmm.
So there are parts of
Not a
that I
ghost story.
liked.
Not a ghost story.
Not a ghost story. There's parts of it that I thought were that the parts of that I really liked, but I don't know. There was maybe it was a little too reliant on that what came before.
Hmm.
Because yeah, I just there were so many characters I just didn't like or feel any sympathy for, and felt like I was supposed to, but I just didn't. I mean, our main character, who's played by Victoria Pedretti.
Victoria, who I'm in love again. We
Yeah,
found love.
just spectacular performance. She literally holds this whole thing together.
Yeah, love
Um,
her.
she's amazing. Very uh, a performance with a lot of depth. And I really, really liked her whole character was just spectacular, and I really liked that the whole arc that the story went on. So that was very satisfying. It's just sort of all these other bit characters
Looked like I enjoyed
that I didn't
like,
really
I enjoyed some of
care
the
as much for.
characters like Hannah and Owen
Oh
and
yeah,
Jamie. I enjoyed them.
I don't like Amy at all. Not
Jamie.
Amy, Jamie. I didn't
You
like
don't
her at
like
all.
Jamie. Hmm.
No, I did not like her at
Interesting.
all. I really liked Owen and Hannah a lot. I thought they were excellent. So a lot like Hill House, the series does a lot of episodes that are focused on one particular person. I think every episode is like that actually, except for the last one.
It's not like as much though. It's like Hill
It's
House
not.
would go in depth. Like you
Yeah,
get to know them inside and out.
and maybe that's the problem. Is it felt like surface like for a lot of it felt too surface level.
It felt too surface
Um,
level,
yeah,
but I almost feel like that was intentional in some ways too. Though it's like a different style, and the fact that like the mystery around this one more was about like finding out what's really going on with these characters rather than like what happened at Hill House and that kind of
yeah,
what's
yeah.
what are the ghosts doing at Hill House kind of thing. Like I feel like there's a different, especially given the ending and seeing the full context. I feel like the story was a lot more satisfying than maybe as it was playing out. I appreciated it more in the end, but
Yeah, I thought that the ending was enjoyable. I like how it all tied everything together. I thought was interesting. I definitely didn't necessarily is I in one aspect I was kind of expecting something similar to that, but I didn't necessarily expect it to play out the way it did. So yeah,
mm-hmm.
that was cool.
But it's so just yeah, I can't stress enough how different it was. Like how different it was from
Yeah,
the original series in both like presentation and characters, but also
hmm
in like in just like different themes it explored too, very different. And
yeah,
even in like the whole ghost aspect of it, where they went into completely different realms than
yeah.
what they did before.
Hill House is like about is like grief, processing grief, and like that's what the literally the entire house is about. Is just like a metaphor for that. But the this one is like more like guilt, and it's not that a house itself is fairly inconsequential. It's more about like the exploration is more like how does each character process and deal with guilt, something, and regret. There's things that happen to their past, and that's compelling. That's very compelling.
Yeah.
To me, I think that's why I found it still very enjoyable to watch, despite finding elements of it to be weaker than what came before, or just weak in general. Not even necessarily comparing it to Hill House, but just relatively weak in general.
Mhm. But it
Yeah,
is really great in terms of production, like in directing. I think it's really well. It's like objectively really well done.
yeah. I think regardless of my misgivings and my criticisms, I think it's still this is still great. Like it's still very solid, very watchable. Like I would highly like before we go into spoilers. I mean, we'll give scores at the end. You can click like a hyperlink. Maybe we'll link it in the description below. Um, but yeah, I mean, I'd highly recommend this show,
Hmm. I
for
feel like this
sure.
is almost for different different people will appreciate this one in a different way than the original
Yeah,
because it's
maybe.
almost like
Yeah.
a puzzle. Like the show this season is kind of like a puzzle playing out. Like you're learning more things as it goes on, and like Hill House was like that too, but it was more so like a character centric drama uh, than this one where it's like you keep getting more little pieces and then things start to
Yeah.
make more sense as it goes on. So yeah, it's definitely worth watching. All right,
Let's get
so
into
spoilers.
spoilers. So if you haven't watched it, do not watch past this part. Highly recommend going to see it before you watch anymore. So okay.
So tell me why you don't like Jamie.
Why don't I like Jamie? So like when her character, I feel like her characterization is completely different depending on the episode. Um, like I liked her earlier on, but then as we got to know more about her, she just became like a complete like I'm your love interest, and it was like, oh. I mean, I liked her as a love. I liked the earlier idea of her as a love interest, but then she just became like a complete like nothing of a character after that. She not necessarily nothing, but she was very bland after that, and I was like, I liked it when she was more feisty and
But what did she have
kind of
before
hard
that she
nosed.
didn't have now? It's just that she's more comfortable. Like she's
It's
in a
but
nice relationship. She
but
still has
it's
the
not.
same
No,
like she still has the same humor that
it's
she injects.
I didn't get that though.
But
I did really didn't.
she's just a very support. She's very supportive. It's like it's good. She's like
Yeah,
a
but like
sense of
that's
stability for Danny there.
I don't know. It just did not work for me.
Hmm.
I think it was I think one thing that really turned me off was how we're delving into all these character backstories, and then we literally sit down for like 5 minutes and she just like, this is my backstory, and I was like, I don't care.
She was telling a story.
I just didn't like it. Didn't work. I don't think it worked at all. I liked the metaphor for the moon blossom. I really like that a lot.
Love that
Um,
scene. Yeah, that's a good
it's
scene.
a, yeah, but the problem with the scene is that's when she's like, "This is my entire character backstory. I have it tragic too." That's kind of where that was where to me the tropes started to fall apart. Or
Yeah,
that's where they sort of crumbled in on each other
that's where
because
the Hill House. If it was Hill House, they would have went into her actual. You would have seen it all
yeah,
play out.
yeah. So like because I mean, putting it completely at what this is a the governess comes and then falls in love with the gardener. Like that's like the Victorian setting story. It's just like she falls in love with the help. She comes to teach the children. She falls in love with the gardener. The fun twist on it is that the gardener is also a woman, and that to me is like the interesting dynamic.
Hmm.
That we have a queer relationship rather than just like your normal Victorian. Oh, the gardener man. He's just so strong and it's like
Yeah.
no, she's a woman. So it was like that wrinkle was fun. but it was like it didn't feel like it relied too much on that idea, and it didn't seem to do anything more interesting than the concept of the governess falls in love with the gardener. Like there was no the only challenge to the relationship was immediately solved, like an episode after the challenge was introduced. So like it felt like the relationship didn't really even have any stakes.
Hmm.
Um, uh, the whole last episode, while I liked seeing characters actually have a good like be happy in the show, for as brief of a period as they were able to spend together, um, I just don't know. I felt like they just became like I don't know. I don't know why it just didn't work for me. I agree with you. I think I like the fact that she was like the support mechanism um for her, but I just something about her. I think might have been just that plot dump that I just really didn't like, and that just to me kind of ruined the whole character.
So then the whole epilogue probably didn't do anything for you, right? Because that
I I
the whole
see. I
that's what
appreciate.
they basically say. It's not a ghost story; it's a love story.
Yeah, that's to me. Yeah, I liked it in terms of a writing. In terms of writing, I could appreciate like I like what they did with that because basically it reframes the whole story as this is actually what she's telling is like is changing the setting, changing the characters, changing parts of the story, but like these are events that did happen in a certain way in my life. And that's cool. I like that as in terms of a writing thing, but I don't know. She was just really bland, and like the fact that the whole you're right. The fact that the entire series rests on her as a character, that I think that's kind of where
Hmm.
it sort of fell flat. I thought it fell flat for me.
See, I thought the ending was pretty impactful. Actually, I was like really sad at the end after watching this. It was just like ruined my mood. I was like, wow, yeah, they found this nice love, and they had some good years, but then of course, hashtag justice for Nell strikes again, and,
Yeah.
and like this is a perfectly good person can't just have a good life, you know.
I like how they lived in Vermont, by the way. They lived in Burlington.
Hmm.
I like that. That was like that makes sense too.
Had a nice little
Because
flower shop.
Burlington having little flower shop in Burlington. Burlington is a lot more Burlington and Brattleboro
Mm-hmm.
are were have been historically a lot more open about gay and lesbian relationships,
Hmm.
and so like that made sense. I was like, hey, Vermont, I know that. It's like I know that I know why they're doing that. They didn't just like
And
move to San Francisco. They moved to a nice like country set, like
yeah,
yeah,
country
country
setting.
setting. Yeah,
It was very nice little. You know, we can't get married, but I don't care. We can still
yeah,
do this.
and they were civilly. They did get a civil
Civil
union.
union. We
Yeah.
were officially unioned,
Hmm.
and then, but it was just so like the ending was almost. It worked more for me. The fact that it felt more drawn out because it was like you saw it just go from really good to like
Yeah.
she's
No, I
just
mean,
Danny's going through just this awful like
yeah,
pain. It's almost like this otherworldly depression.
yeah,
It's like
yeah,
depression, but something she can't have any control over
yeah.
whatsoever. So
It
it's
was
really sad.
it was a self-sacrificial thing too, which is I thought was great. I mean, that's what I mean. Danny is a wonderful character. I think
Yeah,
has
she's
got a
got
lot
some,
there.
and she's got depth to her. Where it's like
Yeah,
she's the most Hill House esque character because they did actually go back to her backstory. The
yeah,
whole like the husband who she grew up with all her life, and then it was like, no, I like women,
yeah.
and then
And it was
he,
like, I actually really like that we didn't see that scene.
and well,
I
yeah,
I like in the sense that like I don't want to like be like it's good that we're eliminating queer representation, but I mean to me it worked.
the
We
scene. Well, you
didn't
mean like where she says it?
she doesn't yeah the scene where she says I like yeah I prefer women or I'm into
Mm-hmm.
women. It's we instead we see the more important stuff, which is everything like
Yeah,
her whole guilt of like not being able to take feeling like she can take agency over her life, and then after she tries to, the fallout of it, the immediate
Really
fallout,
awful
and it was just like
situation.
it was so horrible, and I just like I felt so bad that whole time. I was like, man,
Like
this
that's
is
something you can easily see. Like that's guilt
yeah,
that you can feel.
yeah,
Where it's like, imagine this person who you were with like your whole life and who loved you uh, a certain way, and she probably loved him just a different way, but and
yeah.
then just you had this awful argument, and then he dies immediately. That's the last
Yeah,
memory, and
I
it's
felt
like
so I felt horrible for him too because I was like, man, I just can't even imagine like that just must be like the worst feeling in the world because
and
it's
then
like
you yeah.
it's almost like a yeah I because he was I feel to me he was justifiably upset um
Mm-hmm.
and that was sort of
Because
that was
it's
sort of
like
one of
it's
her
almost like
character
he's living a lie, you know.
yeah
It's like
and that's one of her sort of character faults or flaws is that she wasn't decisive, she didn't want to take it seemed like she was when she was younger she just didn't like take any sort of initiative or agency of her life, she just kind of let things happen to her
mm.
um
And that's also something with like LGBT community where
yeah
it's
oh
like
yeah definitely yeah for sure
you feel like you're supposed to be in this kind of relationship, so it takes a
right
while to realize it.
yeah and obviously we live in an era where it's I'm not gonna say it's easy to do it now because it's not. It's never going to be, and people are tremendously brave for um, admitting that to other people and accepting that part of their lives and everything. But it's like it is still the '80s were much harder. I would
Mm.
say in terms of that, in terms of being there was a pressure so sort of like a weird like pressure where you couldn't really be open about that sort of thing,
Yeah,
so you almost it was almost like it was like a social pressure to like live that lie, which is like horrible to think about.
yeah. So I think that's a strong backstory. Like
Yeah, for
it's
sure.
like
I thought it was great, and then so like the whole apparition is just like her guilt of that moment, the whole everything with that relationship, that entire that whole guilt is like it's haunting her literally.
yeah.
um it's interesting because like that's like one of the only we see other characters sort of have the elements of that kind of thing happening. um we see that with
Henry.
Uncle Henry, which is funny because his name is Henry.
Yeah.
um that's little Elliot. He's little Elliot in ET.
Mm-hmm.
He's grown up. He's kind of a horrible person, and I honestly I thought it was awesome. I thought the whole episode focused on him. I felt great the fact that he was being haunted that way because I was like,
Yeah,
yes,
haunted by
you
himself.
deserve this. You deserve this haunting of
Yeah,
yourself
it's rough.
because you are terrible. And like, and then here's a testament to the acting is that like when he shows up again at the end and is like finally taking responsibility of his life and over the children, like I felt like I was like, all right, like I felt like really good about that. I was like, wow, he's like he's finally like
Mm-hmm.
instead of stewing in, I mean, deservedly he should have some guilt about that because he basically was responsible for breaking up their parents' marriage.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And ultimately the trip that gets them killed too is
yeah,
because of
yeah.
that.
And that's another thing too is that so I think this is so here we also come in another thing. There were very few characters where I actually felt like something towards more than just like really I guess maybe more I should be more specific. Very few characters I really liked or related to outside of Danny, because it's like the kid's parents. The father was just kind of like a
Mm.
boring guy. I felt bad for him because his wife cheated on him with his brother, which is
Right. Not cool.
not cool at
Not
all.
cool of you.
So I didn't like the mother at all. The
What about
valet was a creeper, and I
Peter? What
never
about
liked
Peter?
him.
Yeah.
Peter, Peter, who had the worst Scottish accent I
Peter.
think I've ever heard in my life.
You didn't like
He,
that? Bix.
no, it was not good.
Bix.
Bix. Oh, was it? He called her Bix or Bex?
Bex, yeah.
Bex.
It's just Bex with an
Bex.
accent.
Bix. Bex.
Bix.
Hey,
Come on,
Bex.
Bix.
Come on. Oh, so I liked her.
You're putting
I
his
like
bada in your mouth.
I liked her a lot. I thought that actress was amazing. I thought she was really good. I really
I'm in
liked
love
her a
with
lot.
her as well.
Yeah. I thought she was a really great performance. I
Yeah.
absolutely I loved Hannah. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I know I've been criticizing, critiquing. The best episode of the whole series is the one that focuses on her.
Episode 5,
Like,
baby.
without a doubt. It's that to me that's the most Hill House episode, I
That's their
think, too.
masterclass episode. Like with Hill
Yeah.
House, it was the funeral.
Yeah.
This one, it's
Yeah.
episode 5.
It oh, so good.
It's like it's Hill House, and it's how it's like a masterclass in television, but also it's like very different from Hill House because it's like
Yeah.
it's so different. Like the editing, where it's like back and forth, and she keeps
Yeah.
going through the same. It was a sous chef in Paris. It was a sous chef.
Yeah. So yeah, so in Hill House the episode is the one take, or it's really a couple of takes, and it's actually simulated, but it's the element of having basically just two takes for an entire episode.
Mm-hmm.
This one is playing with time and memory and dreams. So basically, you learn that sort of through this episode, but you learn it like in more detailed ways later on as well. Is that characters at Bly are, when they die, they're like put in essentially like a perpetual dream state, or they can. Her in her case, because of she just never accepted the fact that she died, so she just kept like
Yeah.
living, basically just kept living. She thought she was still alive, and but all of those moments that you kept seeing her like looking at something and like zoning out was almost like her putting herself in a dream state of like an earlier period or a future period. So it was why she always seemed like she was like drifting off.
But why? I still have questions. But what?
Oh, I there's yeah,
She
there's
was
some things
dead
that
the
I
whole
thought were
time,
relatively
right?
unclear.
Canonically, we figure out she was dead the whole time.
Yeah.
So, like, how? But how does that work? Because
So
at some
we
point,
we
Owen's gonna touch her, right? Like, and that shouldn't work.
you would think that didn't seem to happen. Well, that explains why she was like kind of in and out a lot,
And like,
where she would just sort of disappear for long periods of
she
time
didn't want to eat anything.
because she couldn't eat
Yeah,
anything. Um,
but like,
and that was the thing. So you saw with Peter that the ghosts. I mean, you could see through them, the ghosts themselves. They do have tangible, the ability to have like tangible effect, like pick stuff up, kill people by throttling them.
mm-hmm.
They do have tangible effects when they're apparent, visible. Um, so that's why she could like pick stuff up or whatever, but she couldn't actually eat or drink anything.
Hmm.
But yeah.
Okay, because like, well, why couldn't Peter and Rebecca interact at first? Then there was a whole thing when he was a ghost, and they showed the conversation where she's talking to him. It's like, and he ultimately gets her killed in order for them to be together. So
Yeah.
why if this Hannah option was on the table, why didn't they take that? If Hannah could just
Well,
exist as if she was
it's
normal.
it's all about how, I think a lot of it has to do with how they process their time there. Remember, Peter was always in and out of Bly Manor, whereas it had become Hannah's home. She literally lived there on the grounds. She was in denial that she was dead, so the whole interactions that she had were essentially her just in her mind, basically continuing to live on, continuing to care for the house and the children. Whereas Peter, was his entire reason for being at Bly was all around his obsession with oh, sorry, what was her name again?
Bix, Rebecca.
Rebecca. Yeah, Bex. I don't have a very good Scottish accent, Bex. um, uh, so I think like a lot of that was like he also, remember, he hated being there. He did not like Bly Manor at all. So I think some of his, you could almost take some of his resistance to the place to begin with was part of it. Also, his tucked away place was like a memory of his mother taking horribly advantage of him or something. He didn't work. He didn't work for me at all.
Hmm.
I did not. He like
Well, because
he
the conclusion is that the father was doing some inappropriate stuff, right? And the mother
yeah,
knew about it but didn't do
it
anything.
didn't do anything. So his parents
So that's
sucked.
why he kept going back to the memory with her
Yeah,
because had to think about it.
yeah.
And then
But like
look at you, look at
yeah,
this.
yeah,
She had the line that she kept saying.
yeah, yeah.
Peter.
But he was just like he like went back and forth between like I'm a villain or it's like oh but I'm a tragic person. But it's like he was just a horrible person at the end of the day. Very
Yeah,
manipulative.
he was manipulative to the end and
Yeah.
took Bex down with him.
Yep.
And then Bex became kind of bad also, and
But then she didn't kind
but
of.
then kind of did.
Then kind of also did. It was very yeah. It was very
I
strange.
was disappointed in Rebecca. I'll say that much.
Yeah.
Rebecca, come
Yeah.
on, you deserve better.
But I liked the reason I really liked Owen a lot was I think I just really appreciated the relationship of him and Hannah, especially in that episode, sort of delving into like that whole dynamic they had. How you see through her repeating that one day with Owen, of like it's clear how important he is in her life. I mean, and you see all the little moments where it's like them having tea together. They both stayed late, but they're both together. They're just enjoying each other's company. The scene around at the campfire, I really liked.
Yeah, I'll
Um,
call you later.
Alcohol you later.
Honestly, I'm just impressed that he really was just an amazing person, and there was no catch to it.
Who
Like,
Owen?
yeah,
You mean yeah?
from the
I
beginning, it was like he can't be this perfect. Like he's just an
no,
awesome, nice
he's
guy
just a nice British man. Yeah,
who's taking
basically
care of his
he's
mother. He's
yeah
wholesome, and he puts cake
yeah.
batter in people's mouths.
And that's
But
yeah,
he's
and
just great.
maybe that's some of the appeal of Hannah too, is that she's so, and you sort of find that out towards the last episode. You sort of get it in her episode too, but it's like she's so concerned with other people's lives that she doesn't really look out for her own interests whatsoever.
Hmm.
Um,
There's some good selfless ones in here. Like
yeah,
Danny is
Danny's
selfless.
very selfless. Yeah,
Jamie is selfless. Owen is selfless. Like
yeah,
it's all just it's a nice
yeah,
group they got there. But
yeah. But then everyone else is just unlikable, and the children are creepy.
Miles,
I do like the children.
Miles, yeah.
Okay, how about this? This is by the way, this is like this is like wild to me. So we saw all Miles's backstory at school, which I actually really like that episode a lot.
Mm-hmm. That was
I
fun.
was like I was shocked because you almost never see it in like British in like British mysteries and stuff. You always have like oh the vicar he's up to the priests they're up to something evil like
Yeah,
they're really evil, but it's like no, those people were
they're
just
just
like
good
really
people.
they were just good
I thought that was
Anglican
gonna be
people.
bad. I thought he was gonna
Yeah,
be bad
I
for
did
sure.
too, and I was like, no, please don't do this. I don't like that, and they didn't. And he was just like, he was just a very kind man.
Usually
He
good
was just trying
support
to mentor.
system, and then he
Yeah, he was trying to mentor him, and then the little
murders a bird in front of
yeah,
him. And not cool.
not cool, not cool.
So yeah, well, that's what I was thinking going into it. I was like, wow, we went from Haunting of Hill House, who had these great child actors who I love, to
Hmm.
these freaking creeps. I
To
cannot
these
get
freaking
behind.
creeps.
But then the creepiness became justified. You know, like
Yeah,
the first episode when he's like spying on Danny getting changed. I'm like, cool, love this
yeah. I
kid.
was like, oh, that kid's weird. This
And
is weird already.
but then there's just more and more hints, you know, of like him
Yeah.
doing Peter's mannerisms at the very least. But then it's like
Hmm.
more than that.
Yeah.
You know, he
Honestly,
did,
Hannah.
honestly,
Yeah.
I love when he gets ticked off though. Like the child actor did good with his.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Emulating the other character was
Like
really good.
I watched one little interview thing before
Mm-hmm.
this where the actor for Peter was talking about how he would read the lines himself, how Peter would read them, and then the child actor would try his best to imitate it. That's how they would do it.
Hmm.
Oh, it's also we didn't even really mention the fact that we have all these characters that these actors that came from Hill House
Yeah.
into here.
So Victoria Pedretti, as we already mentioned, our darling of Haunting of Hill House, is also our darling of this show. I thought she was wonderful. So she was returning.
I don't know all the
The
names of all the
I don't
actors.
remember all the yeah. The person who played Luke came back.
Peter
He was
Quint.
Peter Quint.
He was really.
Really
He
needs to
was.
work on that Scottish accent, but
I liked him.
yeah, yeah.
I liked him.
I
Not
mean,
the
in terms of an
character.
acting, yeah, in terms of an acting performance, he was fine.
He made me not like him, so
Yeah, so that's I guess
it was
that's good.
effective. Very different from Luke, who I sympathized with the whole
Yeah.
time.
Oh yeah, I just felt yeah. You just wanted to give him a hug the whole time. You're
And then
just
we
like
had
that poor
Henry. We had Henry,
Henry.
who was the father in the first season,
Yeah.
who was very
Um,
different as well.
you
They all take
had
very different
so
personality traits.
the frame story.
Oh, here we go.
The mother from Haunting of Hill House was the person telling the story.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
I'm trying to what's there are other ones too.
So she played Jamie.
She played
There is
yeah yeah old Jamie
Theo
or
found her.
actual
Theo
Jamie.
found her way in
Oh
there,
yeah, Theo found her way in there too.
playing Viola.
Viola, yeah,
So what did you think of that
Viola.
whole shindig? There was a whole it was a whole episode where it took us back, way back.
Yeah, I didn't like that. I didn't really like that. I mean,
Honestly, like I was intrigued by it, but I was honestly falling asleep in that
yeah,
episode.
I
I was
kind of
struggling.
checked out. I felt like there could have been a better way they could have weaved all of that stuff into the other episodes. I was like, there
Hmm.
had to have been some other way they could have done it.
And I
Um,
still don't entirely get why she feels the need to ruin everybody's lives. Like
yeah, I was like,
after,
okay, yeah, okay, so you go back to that, and then you're like, okay, so she's a horrible person, her sister's a horrible person, and you got this poor guy who's just like, he's just like, I guess I'm in between all this shit that's
honestly,
going on,
yeah.
and he's just like, you felt bad for him, he didn't know any better than anything.
But somehow this results in her being the freaking awful
The
lady at the lake,
lady of the lake,
and
yeah,
just terrorizes people regularly.
yeah, and she killed so many people. So like all the
It's
denizens.
rough.
So there's not a whole lot of like I think there is like in terms of if you look in the backgrounds you can see certain people. I think that still they still did that a little bit in this show, but it wasn't nearly to the
Not as
extent
much,
of
yeah.
not nearly as much. Like I didn't even see uh the 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 doctor. Like I didn't see him at all with the plague
Oh, you
mask.
didn't see that one?
I I hadn't seen him at all up until until he was in episode 9. I
No,
was like, was
he
he
was
in
there. He
something
was in
else?
there. He was.
I just didn't remember. I didn't remember
They
him being.
showed like, um, one of the first episodes. There was like a movement. You could see a little beak,
Oh, that's right. Okay, I
and
remember
that's what
that
it
now. Yeah,
was. Yeah,
I forgot. Well, I know.
it
I
was
remember the
referencing.
first or second episode where you saw the sister humming the song with Flora, where they
Flora.
were like singing the song in that humming the same song together, and I was like, that's terrifying. I was like, that was legitimately
Yeah,
creepy. But then but then it was like they totally forgot about that for the whole rest of the show, and then it showed up in episode 8 again. And I was like, oh, okay, all
and she
right,
just looked awful. She looked awful in the
yeah,
end of the sickness. She was just like actual zombie person.
yeah, yeah.
She just- they just wanted
Oh,
nothing to
yeah.
do with her.
Oh,
Viola.
yeah. Oh, Viola, yeah. She looked horrible at that, yeah.
They're like, no, we're trying to dance over here. Like, go back to sleep.
Yeah, and
Get
she's
out
like
of here.
vomiting on the floor, like
I
I was
want to
just like,
dance.
geez. Yeah,
Just
it was just
miserable existence.
yeah, that whole thing was just like I
Well,
did
she
that,
has this whole miserable existence, and then
right.
eventually, the end of her arc is going on to give Danny a miserable existence at the end of her life, where she's
Yeah, so I was like, so all of this stems from somebody who is just a petulant person being like, no one can tell me what to do. This is my house, and it's going to remain in our family. And it was like, okay, I can understand somewhere you're coming from, but also like maybe take a little bit of humble pie
Mhm.
instead of just being a miserable person and making. She made everyone's life miserable, and her sister killed her because she made her life miserable.
she
And
was
then
going to murder children. She was willing to do that. She
yeah,
was going to murder Flora. But
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, she had killed children. She killed the little boy.
yeah,
In probably the 1700s or
yeah,
whatever.
Peter like at one point just kind of tosses in a little tidbit where like this is what happens to people who die
Yeah.
in Bly,
Yeah.
and they just kind of just the
Yeah.
faceless
So
woman and just tosses her.
yeah. So
Yeah,
they all have this waxen sort of appearance where they basically they lose their identity because they keep repeating the same things over and over again. Like being tucked away
hate
doesn't
that.
actually ever help you. It just prolongs your existence until you don't have an identity anymore.
And this whole thing was so different. Like none of this kind of thing was ever explored in Hill House. You know, like
Yeah.
this
No.
the whole possessing people and then hopping through memories,
Yeah.
and it's just such a different tone.
It's a very
But
different vibe. Yeah. Um,
and it was cool. It was cool, kind of finding out the rules of how things worked. But
yeah, I liked getting some of that, but I just didn't like how it like a lot of it just felt like either inevitable or inconsequential, one of those two. I mean, the possession ultimately did save the day at the end because
I still
the
don't understand why did that work though. Why did that do that? Why did
because she basically the it's you, it's me, it's you, it's us was something that was the phrase that she had said to her little girl,
Mm-hmm.
like about Bly Manor. It's me, it's you, it's us. This is our legacy. Like this is us. This is
But
our legacy, Bly Manor. So like that concept is what held her like that whole idea, that regret that couldn't happen, is essentially that's what tied her to Bly Manor for 5 centuries, basically,
so
or 4 centuries.
all Denny had to do was say it though. I thought they were trying to say. I thought Peter was getting at that like you have to be like right here with this person. You have to like both like think it's us. It's what was it? It's what's the
It's me, it's you, it's us.
me? It's you. It's us. And I thought like you had to be on the same
Or it's you, it's me, it's us, or something like that. Yeah.
like the children had to be so focused in on that. But Danny just says it and then she does a quick 180 and it's just like it breaks the spell. They even say it breaks the spell.
But yeah, basically it's like her entire existence has just been a curse on the whole,
Absolute
like,
curse.
and that to me, maybe that's why the children have this almost like outdated way of speaking. Like, the source material aside, because this is based on a book that came out or several books that came out in the 1800s. I mean, taking liberties with it, obviously, but maybe that's why then after the fact they forgot, because we learned through that it's like, oh, they don't remember anything that happened there. Like they don't remember any of that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And then didn't she even say that Danny doesn't remember or something in the end? That Danny doesn't remember the exact uh,
Detail. I don't
details?
remember. I didn't remember
Hmm.
that specifically, but
Well, she said someone else did too, but
yeah.
I just don't understand why Viola felt the need to do these horrible things. Like, what was that doing for her in her horrible existence? Taking these people to the lake and murdering these people.
Well, that was because that was all the rage of her legacy. Not remember, she was like as like a ghost, as a spook. She lived inside that chest for like 30 years, or no, not quite 30 years, like 5 or 6 years or something. And then when it finally opened, it was her sister there to plunder. So like that rage mixed with the rage of when she finally thinks that, then another like 5 or 6 years later, when her husband and daughter are taking it out of the house, they're thinking, oh good, they're gonna like use this, they're taking this with us. But no, instead they're dumping it in the lake. So they essentially, it's like, to her, in her mind, it's like they're almost saying like her sister's more important because we're getting rid of this thing that we had promised we were going to take care of her for her legacy, for Bly,
Mm-hmm.
and we're just throwing it away because I mean, in their mind it was cursed because she died next to it. But in Viola's mind, it was like they were throwing away all the memories of her. It was like they were almost just like getting rid of her entirely.
Yeah.
Saying it's like, you're worthless, your sister's worth more to us than you are, essentially. Which is like, again, it was the person that she killed.
But
So
but why kill all these people who had nothing to do with it, just out of
because
pure
it was
anger?
just like, it was basically just like the rage that
So
that
petty.
kept her. Yeah, it was fairly petty, and that was why I was like, well, she's horribly
Not
unlikable.
cool. What a miserable existence.
Yeah.
That's horrible.
Mm.
Yikes.
So I mean, do you have anything else to go into? I just want to read something before we go into a review because I thought this was amazing.
I
I came
was.
across this by chance
Mm-hmm.
thanks to I actually had heard that Mike Flanagan had been very like, why, and you'll understand why he's saying why in a second. This is a review, an actual review of this show from The Guardian. I am no horror fan by Lucy Mangan. I am no horror fan. I am quite frightened enough in and by real life, thank you, and I stumble too over the large obstacle presented by the fact that ghosts and their ilk do not exist, therefore cannot be scary.
Mm-hmm.
The horror of humanity begins a long way before man's worst efforts. The supernatural doesn't even make it over the fear horizon. Halloween is the most boring time of the year. Why is this person reviewing this show?
Well, there's got to be a catch, right? Like she's gonna say.
No, she gave it 2 stars. She didn't like it. She's like, because ghosts aren't scary.
I mean, fair enough. I don't believe in ghosts either, so.
Yeah, me neither. But
Got
apparently
him.
that just ruins it. Okay, with that
Well,
in mind,
I was
what
gonna
do we?
say. Well, I was gonna say. I think it's a testament to the fact that the characters aren't as relatable. Is the little interview that I watched before this, where they asked the characters, like the three main characters that came back, like
Mhm.
which character did you relate to, and they all said the Hill House, like they related to their Hill House character more.
Yeah,
So I think that makes sense. Like
yeah.
these
I
characters, like even if you like them, they're not as relatable for sure. Like
yeah, like I said, I think some of the fact that there's different writers and directors for every episode made it feel a little too loose in a way. Like Hill House just is it's just a super intricate but very tight web. And I think that's why it's so, to me, is so masterful, because of how superbly it all ties together by presenting you different pieces of information and different character stories. It all twists together to this beautiful, with a beautiful bow at the very end. With this one, it's almost like the pieces don't feel like, you feel like you get part of a piece and part of a piece together in the same episode, and it's like, oh, and then this other piece comes in, and then you get like two other half pieces here. So it's like part of it feels a little like too disparate from each other in some ways.
hmm.
It does all come together in the end. I think I agree with you that I do really enjoy the ending. I think it works even if I wasn't a big fan of the character. But
I thought they were cute together.
I mean, I like them together, but it was more just because I enjoyed that for Danny's sake more than Danny and Jamie's sake. You know. So
Owen got dealt a rough hand though too. He
yeah,
lost
poor
his
guy.
mother and he lost Hannah.
Yeah.
He's a chef though now, a better place.
Hmm.
He's gone to a better place. Um,
I thought that was very funny.
yeah, I still feel bad for Danny. Like I feel like it's the same
Yeah.
kind of injustice
Getting.
that Nell felt, like for no good reason.
Hmm.
They just have to die. Like these are
Yeah.
perfectly good and wholesome characters.
Yeah. There she is. The
Well, I guess the
tragic.
guilt caught up to her, right?
I guess so. Well, I mean, I guess I didn't really like the fact that like they had. I mean, it makes sense because like I don't know. I was gonna say like I didn't really like the fact that they just immediately dropped her guilt with her dead fiance, but I guess it makes sense because she found new happiness
She
with
forgot
her.
all about him.
She just forgot
It's
all
all
about him
good.
all of a sudden. It's like, okay, it was
All
like, but
good
that
now.
that that didn't really, to me, that didn't really mesh very well with the theme of guilt and how
Yeah,
it's like constantly there. But she dealt with a new
that's
guilt,
true.
which is somehow a guilt that wasn't her own. And
She
that was
dealt
like
with the
that's the
freaking miserable person
yeah,
inside of
that's
her.
that's the whole tragedy of the show, I guess. Yeah,
Like
I
she
feel that.
finally got out of the whole reflection phase, and then she got these new reflections to worry about of this
Yeah,
freaking faceless woman. It's like great. You can't look at anything with a reflection. What?
So reframing the whole story is this actually a love story about somebody who about did she have like multiple personality syndrome or something or something like that? You could theoretically go through and reframe like the whole story in a certain way like that.
She
And so
might have
she
been asleep the whole time.
committed suicide, and
It might have all been a dream. It's a
just
possibility.
all a dream. Yeah, a very
What?
intricate dream. Yeah.
What score would you give The Haunting of Bly Manor?
I would
Bly.
give. So I had a score in mind going into this. I think I'm actually gonna surprising myself. I might actually bump it up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm going to give. Now I'm torn. Maybe you go first. Come back to me. I'll make up my mind when I hear
You're
yours.
gonna react to my. You're gonna react to my
Yeah,
score
I will.
and
I
answer with
might. I don't know.
yours.
We'll see. We'll see.
All right, I'm gonna give it 8.5 out of 10. That's where I'm
Okay.
at.
Okay.
I think I gave Haunting of Hill House a 9.5. Like it
Yeah.
didn't get much better than that. This
I
has
don't
like
remember what I gave it. It was something
I
like
think
that
you gave
though.
it a 9. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's like that was a master class in
Yeah.
the horror genre. This one has some creepy stuff and like
Mm.
faceless people, but it wasn't like that display of the genre. Like I wasn't. I think I was scared once, maybe like when Viola popped out that chest. But other than
Yeah,
that,
that
it
was
was
pretty. That was pretty. That was a little cheap, but yeah, it was.
there was no. It wasn't like as chilling the whole time, but and it
Yeah.
doesn't delve into the characters as much as, which was why I loved The Haunting of Hill House.
Yeah.
But overall, I did really like what it did, and it's
So
cool.
okay.
Like the different direction they took it in is
Yeah.
something unique, at least.
Yeah, I agree with you. Well, funnily enough, I'm gonna do the same thing you did. I'm gonna give it an 8.
An 8.
I think it didn't quite work for me in the same way. I think it's still extremely well made. Even though I think it relies a little bit too much on the old sort of classic tropes. I think it works as a gothic horror love ghost story.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it maybe doesn't nail both halves of those as well as I would have liked, but it does them well enough that makes this a very rewatchable show, and I would love to watch this again. So
So
yeah,
it'll give us a Tarkon score of 8.25 out of 10.
yeah, yeah,
Still pretty good.
yeah. It
Um,
was a good show. Yeah, I liked it.
I
So
love Victoria still. I love
she's a great what a great actress.
I
I
love
just want
Bex.
to
I
see her
love
in more
Bex
things.
too.
I want to see her. I want to see both of those. I want to see both of them in more things. I thought they were very good.
Yeah, and I think it's pretty cool how so quickly I almost forgot about Nell. Like she really just became a whole new character. I
Hmm.
wasn't just constantly thinking about like all of them did really well with a completely different
Yeah.
personality.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we didn't necessarily talk about the performance as much, but I liked how deep you could, because she was sort of like on the exterior, she was very bubbly, but like when you saw her like in private or even behind the smile, there was like a nervousness and like a sort of, you can almost tell that it was a facade, that it was, she was putting it on. It was a very impactful performance. I like just absolutely amazing to watch
Then
the whole
she
way
went
through.
through
So,
absolute hell in those last couple episodes.
yeah,
Where it's
yes,
just
it
like
was
terrifying things.
horrible. Horrible.
Like her world just got
So
turned upside down, and
yeah,
like just faceless people getting dragged by the neck, and there's like children being possessed. All those things are just happening
so all
around,
hell breaks loose.
and
Yeah, yeah,
she was like shaking so much
yeah,
at the end there. Thank God Jamie was there. Love Jamie. All
yeah.
right.
All right, she's okay, I guess.
The Haunting of Bly Manor.
Anya Bly Manor.
What
So
lies in the future for the
I don't
haunting?
know. There's Mike Flanagan's supposed to be signed on to some other series currently that is in production. So we may have to wait a little bit
Mm.
for another haunting anthology, but I look forward to it. I think the actors and actresses all involved in this would love to do something else. I would love them to do something else. It's just this is really great. This is just such a great
Yeah, do you think
little
they'll?
couple of things.
Do you think maybe they'll you'll bring any more from like the original Hill House again, like maybe
Maybe.
the missing people, or will they
Yeah,
bring like some of the new, like the Owens actor or something from this
yeah.
one?
Maybe he'll show up. I thought he was stellar. A great performance by him.
Paris was a
Yeah,
sous
and
chef.
maybe he will. Maybe he will. Yeah, maybe he'll come back. I was thinking the character who played the guy who played the oldest brother as Andrew. Who was the oldest brother? Lift your shirt. You. Who's the oldest brother
What?
in Hill House? In Hill
Lift
House,
your
he was the
shirt,
lift your
Steve.
shirt. Yeah, Steve. There you go. Yeah, the guy who plays Steve. Yeah, maybe he'll come back in the next one. That would be nice. I think he was great.
Hmm.
So.
No love for Shirley. Bring
Oh
back
yeah,
Shirley.
Shirley. Yeah, she can come back. I mean, she's a good actress. So.
Yeah. I'm just wondering if they'll like Victoria will just be in every season.
I hope so. She's great.
She's always the main character now. From
Yeah,
now on,
yeah. She's. All
just
right.
different accents.
That's right.
All right. Well, I had a good time.
Me too.
I
Me
enjoyed
too.
it.
So, if people enjoyed watching this, what things should they go watch of ours after this? What's a video of
Hmm.
theirs they might find interesting?
That's a good question.
Yeah,
They should go watch in our horror. It's a horror month, baby.
it is.
So
It's
go
horror month.
watch the Silence of the Lambs review.
Yeah,
All
go
right.
check it out. Yeah,
And
we're
then,
consuming all that horror media. It's fun.
yeah, such great classics as the Silence of the Lambs, The Haunting of Bly Manor, and Alien Origin.
Yeah, wow, up there with the greats. That one. All
All
right.
right, so subscribe to the channel for more. Hit the notification bell to be updated whenever new
Bing.
videos are uploaded. Hit the like button, comment, follow us on Twitter at Tarqaron TWO, and subscribe to our podcast feed. All right.
Subsnurb.
Thank you. I've been Daryl Dixon from season 3 of AMC's The Walking
And
Dead.
and I'm just me. I didn't have a
A
costume this time.
schlep.
I will have one next week. I swear.
Okay.